Good morning, everybody. I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. I have been given a very interesting topic, the ideal topic to be talked about at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. It is autonomic dysreflexia. Now, I myself have done a bit of reading after a long time to find out exactly what is the current status of autonomic dysreflexia. I am basically a neurosurgeon, and I'd like to highlight the fact that autonomic dysreflexia can happen in a lot of conditions like multiple sclerosis and other neurological problems. But today we are going to limit our discussion to basically spinal cord injury related autonomic dysreflexia. Now, what is autonomic dysreflexia? It's purely from an examination point of view. I just highlighted the points that you need to know from a theoretical point of view, and also from a practical point of view about how to manage these patients. After this presentation, you should be able to understand what it is, know how to manage an acute crisis in one of your patients who has got a spinal cord injury, and know some ways to prevent it from happening. And most importantly, you should be able to write a short note on autonomic dysreflexia. Basically, very key points about autonomic dysreflexia is: one, it happens in patients who have got a spinal cord injury at the level of probably the mid-thoracic level, T5, T6 level. It's usually not seen below this level or very high up above this level. This is, as the name suggests, mediated by the autonomic nervous system, and it causes dangerously high blood pressure, which is the danger part of it. Why it is important is because it causes a dangerously high blood pressure and it is a medical emergency. Very simply, the pathophysiology is that there is a lack in communication between the brain and the distal spinal cord below the level of D6. So here you have got this spinal cord injury at about D6 level, and below that you have got this thoracolumbar sympathetic outflow, which is disconnected from the brain. Whenever there is a painful or noxious stimuli which happens below the level of the spinal cord injury, for example like an overdistended bladder or a pressure sore or skin contract or a muscle contracture, the signal which goes up is blocked at the level of the spinal cord injury, and the patient is not aware of the pain and cannot correct it. But unfortunately, it loops there and goes through the autonomic nervous system, which mounts a response to this noxious stimuli, which the patient is not aware of. It causes a vasoconstriction below the level of the spinal cord injury, and there's a sudden rise in blood pressure. Once the blood pressure rises, the brain detects that there is a rise in blood pressure. So what the brain does is, it can communicate only up to the level of T6. So in this region, it produces vasodilatation, hyperemia, flushing. It also produces a vagus-induced bradycardia. So it's basically hypertension and bradycardia. This is a continuous cycle, and until the stimulus is removed, which is the key factor, until the noxious stimulus is removed, this blood pressure can go on increasing in a additive fashion. The most commonest causes are usually in spinal cord injury are an overdistended bladder, or when you have full bowel with constipation where the patient is not able to pass and is in obvious discomfort. There are a lot of other causes which you need to be aware about, because one of the key treatment options or the treatment focus in autonomic dysreflexia is to eliminate the stimulus, because without eliminating the stimulus, it's always difficult to control the blood pressure. The actual stimulus is the starting point of the loop, which sends it up to the spinal cord injury level and comes out through the autonomic nervous system level. So rather than trying to suppress it at the autonomic nervous system level, if you can remove the stimulus, then you can see everything falling into place rather quickly. So you have to look for other causes like bladder or kidney infection, gastric ulcers, tight clothing, leg braces, pressure sores, ingrowing toenail, insect bites, because these patients have got a lot of sensory deficits and they may not be able to tell you exactly where the problem is. A lot of other causes also you have to think about, like extreme temperatures. In females, always make sure that you do a vaginal examination to see if there is anything irritating them there. The signs and symptoms are basically you got a spinal cord injury patient who is paraplegic and who comes with a sudden rapid rise in systolic and diastolic blood pressure with flushing in the upper thoracic region and the face and bradycardia. It can also be severe in the form of cardiac dysarrhythmias where the patient can remain confused and disoriented and even have a syncopal attack. The observable signs are, as I explained earlier, above the thoracic level, mid-thoracic level, you get piloerection, flushing of skin, profuse diaphoresis and sweating, and flushing of skin especially in the face, neck and shoulders. As a symptom, the patient would probably complain of severe headache, blurred vision, disorientation, spots in the visual fields, nasal congestion, a feeling of doom or anxiety, and there are some variants where you got a silent autonomic dysreflexia, where the patient may not have any symptoms in spite of highly elevated blood pressure levels. So the goals of treatment are, obviously the primary goal of treatment is to lower the blood pressure, and for you to achieve that, you have to find out, locate and remove the stimulus that is causing the loop. So step-by-step care is one, you sit the patient up, you loosen restrictive clothing, make him comfortable, you closely monitor the BP, keep the BP always under monitoring so that you don't let it rise to dangerously high levels. You check the bladder, see if the catheter, if there's an indwelling catheter, whether it's working adequately. If it is a self-intermittent catheterization, make sure that the bladder is emptied properly. Look for signs of infection around the urethra. Check the bowels and see if he's got a full rectum, it can be emptied manually. Check for other noxious stimuli starting from the toes up here, to start from the ingrowing toenails, pressure sores, see if there's any compression clothing around the calf muscles, knee joints, ankle joints. And then the 4 ups in the management are: one, as soon as you see the patient, you get the bed up, check his bladder, bowel and check his body starting from below upwards. Now, you need to intervene as far as giving medications for high BP only if the systolic BP is more than 150. And the first instance, there are different protocols. There is no level 1 evidence to recommend any single protocol, but probably you could follow it up with a sublingual nifedipine, which acts rather quickly to control the blood pressure. You can also use nitroglycerin patches and various antihypertensives, which according to your institute protocol you can use. And if the crisis is unable to be resolved and the blood pressure is shooting up and going to dangerously high levels, then probably you'll have to think about starting a nitroglycerin or a sodium nitroprusside infusion to control the blood pressure. Now, more than the actual treatment part of the autonomic dysreflexia, the key area is, one, identifying or being aware of such a complication in spinal cord injury patients. And if a spinal cord injury patient comes to you with confusion or flushing, you should be aware that this is a problem that can occur. Otherwise, sometimes even a blood pressure measurement is missed. And then the second thing is to make sure that the caretakers and the patient himself knows how to prevent this from happening, which includes regular bladder and bowel care, prevent pressure ulcers, inspect the patient's bed often, check records for past crises, avoid tight-fitting clothes, etc. So prevention is very important, and to be aware of this problem in all your spinal cord injury patients is very important. Now, in the outpatient problem, when you get a spinal cord injury patient who comes for a follow-up, there are a lot of things which you yourself can do which can trigger off this autonomic dysreflexia. So make sure that you or your assistants or your team members do not stimulate autonomic dysreflexic crisis, which can even be a small, like an intravenous access or a positioning of the patient, or severe cold in your air-conditioned consultation cabin. And always make sure that your spinal cord injury patients get a blood pressure check at least when they come to the consultation room, or make sure that they get a blood pressure check when they are at home by their respective caretakers. Thank you very much.